Let's talk about good stuff. Let's talk about good stuff. Let's talk about Scream 6. How are we feeling about it right now, though, Fate? With everything we got this week from the good stuff, the more positive side of things, box office looking like it's
Yeah.
going to be one of the biggest opening weekends ever. How do you feel about that?
So, couple things, all right? So, obviously, supposedly, Scream 7 is greenlit. They're in discussions to start that process. To me, that doesn't sound anything new. Like, I made a video about this today, and even like I talked about in that video, like one of the first interviews Radio Silence ever did in regards to Scream, they talked about how they had a trilogy and they wanted to do a trilogy. So hopefully that ends up happening. I think it is. I think, just like Scream 5 hadn't even came out and they already greenlit Scream 6 and that was ready to go. I think the same thing will happen. So we'll, at the very least, we'll get Scream 7. If Scream 6 does really well, which based on their projections, it's supposed to 30 million opening weekend, or 35 million, I think they said opening weekend, which if that's the case, and it comes anywhere close to that, then yeah, this is probably going to be the Scream record. I believe it was Scream 3 has the record for it made what 30 million, I think, in the first or 30.7 million in the first 3 days.
Yeah,
So
it was something 30 plus.
yeah, I believe it was 30.7 million in the first 3 days. So if this one beats that, then that's a good sign that we're going to get more. And it has all the ingredients, right? People are hyped about Scream 6. People really like Scream 5. Scream 5 had some success. Jenna Ortega has become a household name. So that's going to help with the box offices. I'm still interested to see if she lives or dies because, one, this film was written and made before she became a household name on Wednesday. So I wonder if she dies, in the movie, that it's like it's ominous enough to where they could bring her back for Scream 7, where it's like it's something where it's like she could live, but I could really see that being the case where it's like, shoot, like we got all these people because Jenna Ortega is Jenna Ortega, and Jenna Ortega is going to be on SNL March 11th, which is good too. So that's the day after the movie comes out. So that should hopefully drive some traffic, drive some attention.
And they'll do a skit. They'll do a skit on
absolutely.
SNL about it. So that's something. Gets
Absolutely.
it
I
in
mean,
front of a lot of
they did it with
eyes.
Nev, right? They did it with
Yeah.
Nev and stuff many yonder years ago.
Yeah.
So I mean, I do imagine we will get something in that regard. And so if this movie does well, then that's good for Scream 7. I still stand by it. I even broke it down on that video. I still think that we're going to get more than Scream 7. We may get like a little hiatus, but I think they're gonna pump them out because, like I said, I mean, Scream.
Yeah.
I mean, Spyglass and them basically spent probably 50 to 100 million to get the rights to Scream. Like, let's say this Scream movie does 160 million. So that means over the last two Scream movies, they've made $300 million. Let's say it cost them 100 million to get the rights to Scream to make as many movies as they can. So that means they've made $200 million, and they've spent roughly 60, 70 million to make the two movies. So now they're at $130 million, and they spent probably another 60 plus million in marketing the two movies. I mean, they spent a $7 million Super Bowl ad. So now you're talking they're at like, let's call it 70 million that they've made off of these two movies, and that's not even counting what they have to pay out to the theaters, which is probably 70 to $100 million. So they might still be in the negative after Scream 6, or best case, a slightly ahead, which means Scream 7 will probably be the profit movie. And if it's successful, let's say Scream 7 makes 150 million or something like that, why would they stop? Like the beauty of Scream is that like it's not Michael, where when Michael dies, that's it. Now you got to start a new timeline and a new everything. Like this is like, like they could Scream 7 could be the end of like the Sam, Sydney, Billy arc, and then be done with that, and then just tell a whole new story from scratch. And there you go. or maybe even center a trilogy around Tara, right? Like you could do that, especially if Jenna Ortega keeps being this big box office star. Like you could just transition and pivot to her. Maybe Sam dies in Scream 7 and now you're writing a new story around Tara or something. Like, I mean, there's a million ways that they could go, but that's the beauty. So I really think I wouldn't be surprised if we get, another 2-3 films. I do think we get a little hiatus. I think let's say Scream 7 comes out 2024.
It'll come out next year. Yeah. Like if they do it, it'll be next year.
Yeah. So let's say October. Say they try to get it up by October 2024. I think we probably get 2025, probably nothing. And then maybe we hear news in 2026 of like, oh, they're going to get a movie out early 2027. Like I could definitely see something like that happening. But we'll see.
Dude, I mean, you're spot on, man. I mean, these are great stories. You can keep telling them. There's always going to be another situation where someone could go Ghostface. I hope that this movie sets up like they're teasing this in every poster. You know what I mean? Every single poster that they put out, there's like all these ghost faces all around New York City. I hope they set something up where it's like the whole world, like a bunch of people are going Ghostface randomly. Like it's this whole movement now. 25 plus years after Billy and Stu or something. Just something crazy like that to like open up the world a little bit, do some world building, and then you can tell so many different stories based off of that, like offshoots of that, where all around the world shit like that is happening.
Well, to add to your point, what does Kirby say in the trailer? She says, I've been investigating a strain of Ghostface attacks. So that means Ghostface attacks prior to this one.
Yes.
So it is very possible that there are all kinds of Ghostface attacks all over the place in this world of Scream, and we're just on this one storyline. We're just on this one timeline. They could go to a million different timelines, and that could also be ways to bring maybe like a story about Kirby. I've even heard, I think it was Deadline. I might be wrong on that, but one of those like Bloody Disgusting, Deadline, something like that, talked in one of their articles. It was kind of just like a throw-in. They were talking about something else, and I was reading it, and they threw in that the studio is actually interested in making a Kirby spinoff off of that because they wanted to do one with Gale and Dewey years and years and years ago. Yeah, so they wanted to do a spinoff with Gale and Dewey about them kind of basically Scooby-Doo, basically going and solving crimes. Because Gale's, the reporter that solves crimes, and Dewey's like the hero sheriff. They wanted to do a spinoff on that, and it never came to fruition. So it's something that they've always wanted to do, and they're thinking that they may do something with Kirby. And so, but here's the thing, because there's a lot of questions: does Kirby live or die? Right? Well, even if Kirby dies, you could still do a spinoff series, and then we just know
about her past. Yeah,
we just know how it ends. We just got from we got the beginning of the story and we got the end of the story, but now they're just making a series about the middle. And Kevin Williamson didn't we get a report that Kevin Williamson's working on a series that they're talking about bringing the Scream series back? So I mean, maybe that's one of the seasons. We've talked about an anthology, Scream, right? You could do like the Mickey
that would
story.
Essentially, that would be that essentially, that would be cool. I mean, that would that would expand the world a little bit. That's really experimental. You know what I mean? Like that, focusing on just one character like that. I don't, that's something that may or may not work. But I don't know. I haven't seen it yet.
I'd imagine my guess is if they did that with Kirby, it'd be like the slasher series. How I would see it is like you'd have your main characters. You'd have like your Sam, you'd have like, your Tara, Dewey, you'd have like your core characters that you're telling this story with. And it'd probably be like an 8 to 10 episode series. But like Kirby is like the main sub character. So you have the Ghostface attacks, the ones that are being targeted. And Kirby's the one is like the Gale. She's investigating. She's trying to get the story. She's the one that comes in, guns a-blazing to stop the killers. That's kind of my guess, or at least that's how I would structure it, where it's like, okay, so it's a Scream movie. You just have this off-branch character that everyone's familiar with in Kirby Reed, who she's the all those shows have that detective or that cop or the sheriff or whatever. She's that character, and she's solving the crimes.
what if they do like a seasons 1 and seasons 2 of Scream? What if they just do like that same format, but you implement movie characters into it? Like, see,
Yeah.
that could be cool because like a whole like if you do like 45 minutes, like a 45-minute episode where you're trying to figure out who the Ghostface killer is, like it might work, that's for sure, and that could be fun, like week to week, like trying to figure out who a new killer is every single time. But I think one of the things I love about the franchise is how like they tell this big story and it all wraps into the killer's motive, like at the end. You know what I mean? Like I don't think you would have enough time to do that in a show structured in that way, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you do get so much more footage. Like you think of a movie. A movie's 2 hours, you
Yeah.
know. But like a series, if you do like a 10 episode, now you're talking 10 hours of footage. You can get a lot if you structure it and pace it correctly. You could even kind of leave cliffhangers in it. My guess is it's probably its own thing. So, what it was like 3 or 4 months ago or something like that. Now it might even be longer than that. When they first were talking about the Scream series coming back, um, and there was the rumors going around like they might bring the Lakewood cast back, and then it turned out like that was total nonsense, which I wouldn't have mind. I still want a conclusion to that story.
Yeah.
We've never gotten it, but the two that turned out to be like kind of their idea. I mean, things have changed. Like I said, like 6 months ago, they might have changed it now. But the original, the two ideas that apparently stood out was one that they wanted to do, like I said, the anthology idea where like every season is like its own thing, so it'd be its own separate world. Or B, it would be like Marvel Agents of Shield. Like if you've ever seen Marvel Agents of Shield, where it's like,
Yeah.
yes, it's not the movies, but it ties into the movies and it has characters from the movies and story points from the movies, and it kind of just picks up where everything left off. That was the idea that they were thinking, is like, so you'd have this own story with these own characters, which maybe ties into like Kirby and the other Ghostface attacks, and then they would basically use the series to build characters that they could then bleed into the movies and vice versa. So you could have an episode where Gail comes in to talk to somebody. You have an episode where whatever comes in. That, based on the new information we got with their idea for a spinoff with Kirby, that may end up being what they do, where basically create a series where you're building characters through the story that you can, basically move to it's like, for a sports analogy, like, it's like your farm system. So you have like your G League, your minor league, which would be the show, where you're developing and building all these characters, all these players to go play in the big leagues, which would be the movies. And if one of them stand out, like, say you get some actress and she's like, people just love her and she's growing some traction, or you get like a Jenna Ortega situation where, you start the series, this actress is kind of unknown, all of a sudden she gets picked up, she starts becoming the next big thing. Well, now you can just be like, oh, well, let's put her in the movie. So like that could be something that they do. I definitely think you could go a lot of ways with it. I just think like keep it simple. Don't get too crazy, Roger L. Jackson, Ghostface, have your core characters, implement Kirby and whatever.
And it's such a good idea. It's such a good idea for a show or a movie, whatever. I see why they would want to do something like that. I just hope it doesn't become like oversaturated, like how like Star Wars or Marvel is. Like that's not what I want. I want good stories from this. If we like, let's say we pump out 3 movies, then we do like another show or something, either a continuation of like the original show or like a new thing, whatever. I'm down for that, but just don't be giving me like movie, TV show, new movie. You know what I mean? Like constantly, it's like, oh my God, you're just doing the Disney thing all over again. And it's like, You clearly don't care about telling a good story. You're just pumping out as much as you possibly can so you can make money. You know what I mean? Like I'm just not interested in seeing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want a good movie from 6 and I want a good movie from 7, because we've talked about it so much, and with how successful this movie's about to be, they're putting a lot of eggs in this basket. I really think I really think this movie's gonna like blow Scream 5 out of the water. I'm predicting like 190 million. I really think it could make that much. And then like if they make a 7, man, they'll make good money on that too if 6 doesn't suck. So,
they should. I think here's the thing though, is that like, and here's my concern regardless, is that like even if like the story and stuff sucks, like say it's something we don't like let's say it's your worst nightmare, right? The Billy's mother, right? Like that whole thing, and it's some like ridiculous tie-in, which you and me both aren't really excited for if that turns out to be the case. But if they do go that route, the problem is that the box office is good. At the end of the day, that's all they care about. So they're just going to keep going with their story. And they're going to look, and what is the consensus? Because here's the thing that I always try to get across that I don't think a lot of people really understand. Us Scream fans are a very small portion of the general box office. They don't really care how we feel. They care what the consensus is. So all of us like diehard Scream fans, we could all be shouting, "This is stupid. Why did they do this?" Blah, 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 blah. But if we're, 1% of the total pool, then they're just going to look at it as like, oh, it's just, a small group of haters, right? It's just a small group of people that don't know what they're talking about. But look, the majority, the box office says people loved it, the returns, all of that, like, it's great. Why would we listen to this minority over here? Like, that's something that like I try to get across to people when I'm talking to people, because I'll even get comments. People will be like, oh, but and I'm like, you got to understand, we are nothing in the grand scope of things.
Because you also have a point that like if a general audience sees basically Mrs. Loomis 2.0 in this movie, they'll be like, oh yeah, that's a thing Scream does, that's cool. I can see that being a takeaway from a movie like this. But I don't know, man. I want an original story. I want something I haven't seen before. And like, that's not that hard to do. Like, you can make a lot of money off of these IPs and also tell a good story. It's really not that hard. I promise it's not. That's what's so frustrating about it to me.
Yeah, no, my biggest fear, and I mean, cheers too. I mean, we've expressed this before. My biggest fear is that they just keep handcuffing themselves to these past characters. And it's just like, because at some point you got to break away. And my thing is that like, they keep talking about how this is a new Scream and it's something different and it's this, that, and the other. And if this Scream just turns out to be another Scream and you just tied in all these legacy characters and you did this, that, and the other,
that's
then you
not
didn't
different.
make a new Scream.
Yeah.
You did the same thing that you did for Scream 5. And then it's like, what? And then you expect me to believe that you're going to change it for Scream 7? Maybe they use this movie as like the conclusion film, right? But then it's like, okay, well, I guess if they, especially if they are planning on making more movies, then maybe it makes more sense where you wrap everything up in Scream 6. So you have basically 1 through 6 is the Sydney Billy arc, with Sam integrated, and then Scream 7 starts the new trilogy or the new story. But I don't know. Like, regardless, like, why not you should have just done that from the beginning.
We kind of got a little, we got all over the place in that first segment there, but I do want to kind of come back to this, talking a little more about, the box office, this being so successful with, like, just for all the different reasons why I think that this is successful. So like how I kind of want to start this off is talking a little bit about Jenna Ortega's success. Obviously, when this was like, this whole movie was filmed and like pretty much her extent of like what she was doing with the film was done before Wednesday. So do you think there is still an opportunity that she could die in this film a little? Like, I kind of want to talk about that because I feel like that's going to kind of, if she dies, that sets up the whole next movie, in my opinion, about what they're going to do with Sam and all that. If she doesn't, they're going in a different direction. How do you feel about that though? Do you think they'll have the balls to kill her even with all of this fame that she's had now?
So I do like I said, okay, it's in their best interest to keep her alive for as long as you can, right? Because she's the face now. You're getting traction in people that you've never gotten before. I mean, there's already like groups that are like, I hate Scream, but I'm going to go watch it because Jenna Ortega, right? You got all that stuff. So it's in their best interest to keep her alive. I'm hoping that they were able to see what we were all able to see and go, oh, okay, Jenna Ortega's going like this, right? And so we should probably keep her alive. But I think that boils down to two things, I guess. One, is that something that she wants to continue to do, right? Does Jenna Ortega say, well, yeah, I want to keep doing these Scream movies? Or does she look at it as like, I got Wednesday season 2 coming up. I got all these movies and projects over here. I'm hot, commodity right now. We know Marvel loves to come in and swoop young actresses up like this because they can keep them for 10 plus years. So she could come in and they could be like, hey, we'll give you, you know, a 10-year movie deal and we'll give you $100 million over those 10 years. And now her life just changes. And she's like, why would I do Scream? Like there's a million things that could happen. And we've seen this happen with other franchises, other shows, stuff like that. So it comes down to one, like, is that something that she's like, yeah, I would love to keep doing these films, especially as like a side character, because that's what she is. You know, and I don't think they're going to change Sam and the story and everything like that just to make her the main character. I mean, like, Gail was a pretty prominent character, but still, like maybe they implement Jenna more, but she's never going to be the main girl because, you know, it's that. Not that she cares. She might not care, but it would be in their best interest to do that. But the other thing is that like my other concern is that, yeah, they saw like, okay, yeah, she's going up, but she's not like this huge star, right? She's not Courtney Cox when she came to Scream, where it's like Courtney Cox was already an established household name that people recognize, people love, people went and go see this just because of her, you know, because of Friends and stuff like that. Where now Jenna is like that Courtney Cox type person, that star, the one that people know, the household name, but she wasn't for Scream. So I think it is a very real possibility that she dies in this movie because they didn't plan for that. My hope is that they knew, because she got the Wednesday script at the same time that she got the Scream script. So she was posting images with both of them. So my hope is that they looked at it and went, Jenna Ortega's already going up. She's about to do a Tim Burton TV series. She's going to be successful. So we should keep her alive. That's my hope.
I pretty much agree with you. I think that's probably the mentality they had, that they want to keep her alive. You know, like I think that the big thing with that is that they know she's this big star. They want to keep having people come to these movies, and they are well aware that yes, there is an entire faction of people lining up day one to the theaters to see Jenna Ortega on the big screen who have probably never seen a Scream movie before. So it makes sense, but at the same time, I miss when movies had balls. I miss when movies were, you know, like I hate being that guy, but like if Scream doesn't do something different here, I've completely lost my faith in requels, is how I feel about it. Scream 5 is such a strong start to a new, fresh take on a franchise. I'm like, this could be it. This could be a requel that does something different and actually adds some value. Like the Star Wars movies, I will never watch 7, 8, and 9 ever again. I have no interest. I saw them opening night. I'll never watch them again. They had no substance or anything that I cared about that happened in those films. The Halloween movies, I think, are just ruined by that last entry that we just got last year, which is a shame. Even though I still really enjoy the first two films, the story ends up going nowhere now, which sucks.
Well, I mean, movies, period. I mean, Marvel's taking a big...
Marvel, dude, Marvel sucks.
Like getting killed right now.
I don't even want to see it after the reviews, man. Like I was so excited for this one. I love the first two Ant-Man movies. Ant-Man, whatever. Ant-Man. I don't give a shit. The Ant-Men, an army of Ant-Men. No, but
I mean, if you saw the trailer, there are. Right?
Yeah, right. Actually, yes. You know what? I did that on purpose, Tyler. You got my back, man. I appreciate that. No, but for me, I'm just like, dude, everything is starting to just go down. You know, I'm just like, I'm starting to get.
There's no originality, and the problem is
and that, like the indie horror, dude. Indie horror is the only place where I'm just really feeling this big, strong original vibe. It's the only thing I get excited to go see at the theaters anymore.
But a couple things about that. One, they're not falling into, and movies do this period. Like I see people all the time that are like, you know, like, oh, it's the woke movement or it's this and that. Like, yes, it is. That is a big part of it. People are sick of the same thing over and over and over and over again. But Hollywood's always done that. What's the big movement and how can we saturate it and drown it as much as possible until people are sick of it? The thing is that sooner or later, this woke movement's going to go and that'll be a thing of the past. And then the new movies and the new movement will be the thing that everything is. The problem is, like, there was a stretch in like the late 80s and 90s where movies were just made to be movies, right? Like there was no agenda. It was just like, hey, here's a movie. And Now it's like, well, we have to do this and we have to do that and we have to. And my thing is like, just make the movie. What is the best movie you can make and create? Do that. I don't care about all
my
the
big
others.
thing is like a lot of it is just fan service. Like a lot of it is like, let's focus on fan service and just make the whole movie about that. That's my, like with Star Wars, that's my number one issue is like every decision that was made was something that was like from a non-Star Wars perspective. like oh, okay, I'm not like these are decisions clearly coming from people who don't know Star Wars and just like kind of like briefly looked over what's the biggest things from this franchise. People like Chewbacca, people like Luke Skywalker, people don't like Finn. Oh, we got to sideline the main character. We got to sideline the main character of our story out of nowhere in the second movie and then reduce him to a side character in the third entry. What is that arc for his character? It sucks, man. I feel so bad for John Boyega. He can act. You ever see Attack the Block, dude? Killer movie. Like, oh, you caught me in a bad mood today, Fate. So I'm all pessimistic and shit.
Let it out.
Man, I'm like, to me, I'm like, if Scream 6 isn't good, I'm just gonna kind of be giving up here on big blockbuster movies. Words are tough. And I don't know, the only thing that's impressed me in the past like 2 or 3 years has been the smaller indie films. Like, I don't know, man. It's like Hollywood is slowly becoming a business, and that just makes me so fucking sad. I don't want to see that happen to like Halloween. I'm sorry, I'm almost done. I swear. I'll shut up in a second here. But I'm almost to that point. And if like Halloween was so close to being good, which sucks, and I think they just blew it in the last one. But if this one sucks, I don't know, man. Like this is a franchise that is near and dear to my heart, and if they ruin that, I don't know what to say, man. I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna lose my mind if they mess it up here. I really hope they don't, though.
But I mean, like the thing is that like when it comes to like the indie films and stuff like that, they're just trying to make, they're the closest there is to just like, hey, let's just make a movie. Where like Disney especially, they're more of like I said, like how can we just keep the same thing going over and over and over again and saturate this? You know, like every series now is the same story.
Dude, that's just different. Like I'm not gonna support that shit. Nobody should support that shit. That's just being done for money, man. And it sucks.
That's all it is. That's all it is. And that's the thing. And until we get to a point where it's like, let's just make a movie. You know what I mean? Like that's the difference. And we're seeing the movement. Like, you know, you're seeing like, I mean, even Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is supposed to be absolute trash. But guess what? It's killing at the box office right now.
Because it's dude. And yeah, listen, I'll be straight up. Like, listen, I enjoyed it. I had a fun time with it, but it's not a good movie. Like, but that's exactly okay. That's a whole nother rant right there. But no, I'll save that for the future. But you're totally right, man. Because people are craving originality. You know, Wayne, while I do kind of agree with this, saying slowly become a business. Sadly, it's been that way for way too long. Yeah. You have a point, but the past 4 years, man, like, or well, not even the past 4 years, ever since like the whole requel thing started trending, that was a big thing. Star Wars kind of kicked that off, and now every franchise has done it. Now it's just become so, like even in the thousands when we were remaking everything for money because we knew those were going to be hot IPs, bringing back Nightmare, bringing back Texas Chainsaw, Friday, all those movies made money. And some of them were bad. You're right, but they didn't monopolize on it the way they're doing it nowadays. Like now it's just clearly a business. Like they don't even give, like they're just not even trying. And a lot of those movies were great. A lot of those movies were fantastic. Some of them sucked. For sure, Nightmare on Elm Street is unwatchable. But Friday the 13th, that remake was kick-ass. I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, like a lot of those are good, man. Most of the requels, I would say, are not good. Like that's what sucks.
But even then, they were just making a movie. Like now, it's just like my whole thing is like, if you have a good idea and you have a good story, just tell the story. What now it is like, oh, let's use a story that already exists and change everything about it. You know, let's turn the guy into a girl. Let's turn the monster into this. And it's like you have like either come up with an original idea or keep it what it is and just make the movie. You know, if you want to add your own spin to it, sure, do that. Like my whole thing has always been like, I don't care. Like if you're doing a period piece, yeah, you should probably keep it true to form. But if you're just making a movie, I want the best actor and actress. It's
Yeah.
like now it's like it's like, oh, well, we have to have this particular person in this role. Is that the best person for the role? Yes or no? Because if it's not, then I don't care. And that's the problem. That's why you keep seeing these bad movies. It's because you have all these actors and actresses that are playing roles that they probably shouldn't be playing, or they're in spots that they probably shouldn't be in. And one, it makes them look bad, and two, it just makes for a bad movie. We've seen movies where it's like, that character should be playing that character because they're playing that character perfect.
I feel that. I felt that a few times.
But that's the problem, is that they're looking at it as like, well, we have to have the lead be this particular female, right? And it's like, but is that the best course of action for the story? Like, if that is what it is, then sure, then keep it that way. But it's like, well, it doesn't make any sense because of this. I mean, even Scream 5, what were people's biggest gripes? That, you had this 5 foot, 100-pound soaking wet woman running around killing and I mean, she didn't lift people up, but lifted people up, as people put it. And it's like, I get it. I'm all for.
I see what you're saying. I totally see what you're saying. But like with Scream 5, I don't know. I guess I didn't feel that the way everyone else did. You know what I mean?
Didn't either.
Like,
I thought
everyone,
it was fine.
I really enjoyed that movie. Like, I had a blast with it. And like the whole Amber thing, I don't know. That was so blown out of proportion, in my opinion. Like, I don't like, she doesn't lift Dewey in the air. I've watched the scene like 100 times. Like,
I love the meme
where
it's like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like what people think happened and what really happened.
Exactly. Like, I'm like, that's not at all what happened. And if they didn't write it the way they did, like, maybe I'd have a problem with it. But like, he gets the phone, like, he gets the text message and looks down at it, and then Amber gets the drop on him. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's what happened.
His character.
Yeah, exactly. That's so consistent with Dewey. Like, I'm like, that totally works. What?
Like, I've pointed this out so many times when people are like, oh, it's unrealistic. And I'm like, have you not watched Dewey as a character over the last 5 movies? Go watch him. Scream 2 is the best example. He knows a killer is chasing him down, about to murder him, and he walks into the room all lackadaisical, like, and he steps on pizza, and he's like looking at the pizza, all distracted, all this stuff, sees Gail, oh, hey, Gail, and then
he's
boom,
a goofy,
Ghostface comes in. And like, that's the whole point. That's why Doofy was so perfect, because it was like, it's an exaggerated version, but it is. And then even in Scream 2, they highlight, when Dewey's like talking to Gail, and he's like, page 47 or whatever, Dewey comes in with his,
oozing and all that.
Yeah. Like, he's just this silly, lackadaisical, like, like, everything's fine, even though a killer is coming after me. Like, that's the thing. Like, it's his character. I thought it was great, but I understand the realism. Like, that was my problem with Scream 4. You had Charlie, who was, 5'5", 100-pound soaking wet. And then you had Jill, who was, 5'2", 100-pound soaking wet. And they literally had scenes. There is this scene where Sydney and her aunt or whatever are pushing against the door, and Ghostface is like 6'7". He's literally as tall as the door, pushing against it, making this big fight. And it
is a movie at the end of the day, like, that's my thing. I guess my big thing about like that argument though is like, there are so many, like, that what you just pointed out, like, right there, that's unrealistic. You're right. Yeah. But so is a killer dressing up in a fucking like, have you ever put on a Ghostface robe, dude? Those things are heavy and hot. Like, dude, anybody who decides to go kill somebody in that is a fucking moron. I'm just telling you that right now. That would never happen in real life, man. That's why if you see, like, you'll see people like rob a gas station or something in real life, they're wearing a Ghostface mask. They're not committing to that fucking robe, dude. That thing's hot. Thing's hot and heavy, man. Screw that, man. Oh my God. And who, like, using a knife too? They wouldn't use a knife. Like, as awful as that sounds, they wouldn't use that if they were actively trying to kill somebody. Yeah, it's like the concept itself of a slasher is unrealistic. Like, if you're gonna get mad about things like that, then you must hate the whole thing. You must hate the whole property. And I guess that's why I don't even look at arguments like that, because I'm like, man, it's like this whole thing is based in ridiculousness. You know what I mean? If you're gonna start complaining about little things like that, you might as well complain about the whole thing.
Yeah, no, and I mean, look, there's always going to be movie logic. There's always going to be pandering to an audience because it is still a movie. Like every Scream movie has a scene where you're just like, okay, this is just clearly for the audience's perspective, but that's fine. Again, it's
exactly. Yeah, it's like not everything has to be perfect as long as it's close enough.
Yeah, my only thing is like certain feats, right? Like I said, like the Olivia scene, like the kill scene, like the way that played out, and when you get the killer reveal, it makes no sense. Okay, she's bigger than both of them. Like my only thing is like I understand not having realism, like it's movie, it is, I get that, but Scream really tries to maintain the purist as much as possible. And my thing is like, okay, if you're gonna have these undersized killers, that's fine, but have the kills accordingly. That was my thing about Scream 5 that I like. You had Amber, who, yes, she was 5 foot, 100 pounds, but she wasn't trying to wrestle with people. She wasn't trying to fight people. And when she did, she lost. Dewey manhandled her like she was a 5 foot, 100-pound girl, right? He won the fight. He took her out. And then he just got distracted and boom, it was over, right? Same thing. Like you saw with even the Wes fight, right? Wes is able to hold her off with the knife until he reaches and tries to get with one hand, and then she uses leverage to take him out. It's a realistic kill. Amber didn't just go in and just like try to fight, but she wasn't like square up. She literally went in and like Vince, dead. You know, Judy,
and that's great attention to detail, you know, like that's what I hate when I hear that about Scream 5, because I'm like, man, the attention to detail in that movie is amazing. Like I've watched it like 25 plus times at this point.
Scream 5 probably did the best job in that regards.
Yeah,
and it made it the most realistic, because like think of even serial killers in real life, right? Like the Night Stalker and stuff. The Night Stalker found Richard Ramirez found his target, went in, did what he did, and got out. That was it. Like that was what he did. Serial killers don't sit there and play it. Like you need the phone call. I love the phone call, all that stuff. Like that's Scream, right? That's kind of became Scream. But in reality, they're not calling you saying, "Hey, I'm about to kill you." No, you don't see it coming. Like, and so I like Scream 5 because it was like this one, it was this tension build, but two, it was, we're not playing games. I'm just going to kill you. Like, I'm not like when you least expect it, I'm not going to try to fight you because I can't fight you. There's a risk you win, you know? And yes, I agree. I mean, we see this stuff every day on the news, unfortunately, you know, it's a gun instead of a knife, but we see people going to schools and doing this and doing that. Right. And it sucks. It's a crazy world we live in, but that's what makes Scream so terrifying. And like even the motives and stuff, like one of my favorite lines in horror movie history, period, is the strangers. When they're like, "Why are you doing this?" And they're like, because you were home. That is the most terrifying thing ever, because that's reality. There's no explaining crazy. There is no explanation for crazy. In every Scream movie, like you hear the motive, whether you love the motive or not, when you really think about it, it's crazy. It's insanity. It makes no sense. It's illogical. But that's
the best mode. Yeah, that's the best mode. I totally agree.
It's crazy. You can't explain crazy. Like
if it's too thought out, that's where I'm almost like, I don't know. Like the best killer motives are the ones that are like the most illogical, in my opinion. Like those are always the fucking scariest. Someone who is not thinking in any bounds of reality, those are the people who are the craziest. Those are the people you should be scared of. And that's what I want in Scream 6 so bad, man. I want killers that are just vicious, destructive, and are just absolutely at the pinnacle of losing their mind. I want to see that here in 6. I don't want it to be somebody's brother, cousin, nephew, whatever. Like we don't need to do that. Show me crazy people killing people. That's what I want. That's what I want to see more than anything. If it's Stu's fucking brother or Stu himself, I'm gonna lose my mind.